it's Sabina out from scratch with a web audit for the rainforest. What's a web audit for the rainforest? Well, it's basically a free web audit of one URL on your website. It's not entirely free because what we do ask for is a small donation to a rainforest charity, just enough to protect 1 square meter of rainforest. If you want to find out more about it, just go to our website fromscratch.net/freebies, and it's the very first freebie on that page. There's also one version of this audit for emails. Take a look at that too. Maybe it's interesting for you because you're maybe planning some changes or working on something exciting and want some pro feedback on your work. But without further ado, I want to show you what the web audit is all about today. It's a web audit for Little Green Space, which is a design studio in London. And Little Green Space only works with ecopreneur businesses and organizations. This is what the hero section of the website looks like. But before we dive into that, I just quickly want to show you what Jenny, the founder of Little Green Space, is going to receive from us, because she receives this video in addition to this version of her website, an annotated version where we've got currently 32 comments. Most of what I'm telling you in this video is also on that comment list. There might be a couple of extra ones. You can click here and then it expands so you can see all of them, or you can just click on one of the buttons like here, number 5, and then you see my comment and you can resolve it. I can edit it, you can add a reply. That's what Jenny is receiving. She will also be able to see a quick mobile view of her page here, and you can actually choose what device you've got. So on an iPad it would look like this. I focused really on the desktop version in my audit. However, I think the web page is really set up to work really well on mobile too. So yeah, without spending too much time in this view, I just want to go back to the actual website the way you would see it when you visit it. We're starting with this amazing hero section, which is, you know, it's just simply stunning. And I was drawn in by this illustration immediately. It didn't really bother me when I came to it first that there are 2 headlines in this hero section: the expert creative storytelling for earth-friendly brands and the creative studio committed to a better future. Normally, we would say, don't have 2 such headlines because they're competing with each other. In this case, I think they are actually complementing each other, because here we've got the question, what does Little Green Space do? Well, it does expert creative storytelling for earth-friendly brands. So we're like, what do you do? How do you do it? Who do you do it for? Whereas here, Creative Studio, we've got the question, what is Little Green Space? And what are your values? So they're looking at Little Green Space through different lenses, and there's no contradiction there. So I think that's why it probably works. Really clear. I know exactly what it's all about. And then we get into this bit of text here, where I struggled a little bit, I have to admit, just because, not because it's unclear, but just because we've got this amazing illustration which really nods to all of the SDGs that Little Green Space is working towards, like climate action, reduce inequalities, responsible production and consumption, industry innovation and infrastructure. It's all somehow in that illustration, and it really grabs me emotionally. And then this paragraph is just a little bit dry and corporate. And that's down to words like these: provides expert visual storytelling, or we are committed to businesses. So it's not very direct. It's not talking to the reader by saying you. It's not using language that people would use in conversation when they talk naturally. I would recommend rewriting that to give it a little bit more emotional oomph, so it can actually, fly with what you've got here in the illustration. And you've got the work together button, which is also up here, and that button up here in the menu, it doesn't float with me. So here we've got the same button twice, but then just so you know, it's not traveling with me down the page. When I click it, it takes me down to this booking form, which is really a contact form. So I would recommend looking at the wording of that button again. There are a couple of things that I would expect when I see it, but I would not necessarily expect just a simple let's chat form where I can put in my name and my email, and then I don't even know exactly what happens next. So yeah, I would rephrase that something like, let's get to know each other. By the way, it's really worth testing first person button phrasing, something like let's or yes, I want to. So it has been shown in some tests and trials that performs better as button copy than button copy that talks in the third person in a he, she, it form. So that's worth testing. I would probably recommend something like let's get to know each other, or something like that, or get in touch, maybe just something that is a little less than working together, because we're not yet deciding to work together. I can't hire you through that form directly. And that's also good, because people are probably not ready to hire a little green space just after reading this and having this illustration shown to them. They probably need a little bit more information, and that's fine. So let's make the button really transparent about what happens when I click it. Now we've got some nice logos of past clients of Little Green Space, and here the only thing I'd recommend is framing that with a little headline. Just saying something like trusted by eco brands like these, so I know what I'm dealing with here. Because if I've never heard of Indigiads, for example, or Yakum, then I'm not quite sure. You know, I see a gorilla in the logo, but what is it about? It's good for people to have a little bit of context. It's also helpful with accessibility, because if you've got people coming to your page and using a screen reader, if you're not using alt text on those logos, and if you're not giving them some sort of headline, it's much harder for them to understand what they're dealing with, and they might not even get any of this information at all. Finally, before we move to the next section of the page, we've got this really minimal, beautiful menu. I like minimal menus. You might not guess from scratch because it's a massive menu, but really I do like them. Here, Instagram is a bit of a tricky one. You've only got the icon. So again, for people who can't see the icon, it's really difficult to grasp. But also, you're not telling me why I should go to Instagram. And if you're anything like me, social media is dangerous. You go there, you get lost in your feed, you completely forget why you actually went there in the first place. So if you're looking to get people to contact you, if you're looking to build that sort of relationship, it may not be very helpful to send them to Instagram. At the very least, I would recommend thinking about what Instagram's supposed to do for your business, and then make that the link in the menu. So, you know, word it explicitly, phrase it out, say something like, see our portfolio on Instagram, or something like that. That way you're still telling them that they're leaving your website and going to Instagram, but it's not like they're going there aimlessly. They go there with a mission, and that way it's easier to keep everything neat and tidy and also have good conversion. However, if there's no real purpose for Instagram other than staying in touch, do put it somewhere else, like on a contact page or in your footer, so that people aren't distracted from the primary purpose of their visit here, namely to get in touch and book a consultation so they can then work with you. Right, moving on to the next section, we've got a bit of an explanation of what Little Green Space actually does, namely web design, branding, and illustration. This section is great, but could be even better. So the main thing I would recommend doing is adding a bit of a portfolio beyond these images, because right now I can't really do much with any of those. I can't look at them in more depth. I can't see anything about the background of the work. Who is this client, for example? Not easy to read the logo. I'm still struggling with that a little bit. So I can't click here to see anything more. Would be great for a website if I could look at the live website. For branding, it might be great to just see all of the different iterations of the brand, like how does the brand live, in what kinds of items or designs, what was the brief, how did you execute on it, can you maybe give me a little bit of a case study? And also with illustration, how is that illustration used? Was it a one-off Instagram post, or is it actually a poster? Is it, what is it? Is it on the website? Just to give me a little bit more, a better understanding of the work. And then also, if you've got great testimonials for any of those, like here, this is about the Yacum brand, and here you've got the Yacum director, then it would be very compelling if that testimonial was always visible and linked to the work that you did here for them. So I've got branding, I've got the visual example, and I've got the feedback from the client. And so I can say, it's not the style that we want to go for, but I can see from the surrounding ones that Little Green Space are really versatile. They can do all sorts of things. And the director of that company was really happy with the work. So that builds my trust, and I want to get in touch. Because there's this thing with these carousels. I mean, this carousel is really good in that I have to actively click through it. It's not automatically switching to the next testimonial, but you're really losing the majority of your impact this way, because I want to be able to see different bits of feedback about different claims that you're making on the page in order to corroborate those claims. If you're only ever giving me one of them, and it's in its own section and not linked to any of the claims you're making, then you're losing that effect of building my trust, because I have to use my own mental energy to first think, oh yeah, I could click through all of them, and then also make the connection between the projects you've worked on, the claims you've made, and the social proof that we've got available. So when going through the website and optimizing it, I would say, okay, where are we making a claim about something? And do we have a proof point, either by showing an image or ideally also by backing it up with a client testimonial? And not hiding them, because I don't know how many there are, probably around 7 or 8, but there's only ever one that I can see at a glance, and I have to put in some effort to see all the others. So I never recommend having testimonial carousels, never, especially not for smaller brands that are maybe a little less well known on the global marketplace. Right, moving on to this section. I think there's a little bit of an issue with this image today, because when I looked at this before, the whole bit here was filled up by the image, and for some reason that's not happening for me today. Here, Little Green Space go a little bit more into the philosophy that drives their work. So here we've got brands that reflect the natural world, which is great and very descriptive. In terms of how to write headlines, I would recommend making the headlines more direct. So talking to the person and helping them to understand that their brand should reflect the natural world. Because now you're just saying brands that reflect the natural world, but you're not really saying explicitly what the relationship of that is to your work or to your client. So you could say something like, we create brands that reflect the natural world, or a question like, does your brand reflect the natural world? Or something like, ecopreneur brands should reflect the natural world. So, there are different ways of creating that relationship between you as the service provider and the client, and this concept of brands that reflect the natural world. And it would make sense to make that more explicit so it has more of an emotional oomph. And there's a little bit more text there to explain what that actually means. This image, it's of a mountain, so it's not really a brand that's being depicted here. And I think what I would love to see here is a brand that reflects the natural world. So something like a picture of a mountain in the real world and a logo or a brand design that picks up on elements of that image to show that this brand reflects the natural world, and in what way, so I can actually see it for myself, because the mountain itself is not a brand that reflects the natural world, it's just the natural world. And so it's a great illustrative image, but it's not illustrating the entirety of the text right next to it. And so it could be a stronger image here. Yeah. As a great brand, you have the option of taking inspiration from nature. Yeah, not just as a great brand, anyone has that option. So maybe we can tighten that a little bit, or even leave that sentence off, because now we're explaining what the brands that reflect the natural world are like. Earth, air, fire, and water provide appealing colors and textures, while natural shapes are automatically pleasing to our eye, a pattern that we intuitively connect with. Just to make this a bit easier to read, it would make sense to shorten those sentences, to really break it into two. Earth, air, fire, and water provide appealing colors and textures, full stop. Natural shapes are automatically pleasing to our eye, a pattern that we intuitively connect with. So we've got one idea per sentence, and it's then easier to read. Colors spark an emotional response and are powerful marketing tools. We use nature to predict the effect colors have on the human psyche, and crucially, the influence they have over brand recognition. Over reads a little odd here, but yeah, that sentence for me is really the core. I would put that first and then the rest of the paragraph, and I would leave this bit off and instead embed that message in the headline, and then it's a bit more concise. And it focuses more on your strength and how it's driven by your eco-philosophy. And now let's come to a question that Jenny, the founder of Little Green Space, wanted us to address front and center really in this audit. And yet we're only coming to it now because I wanted you to have the experience as somebody who watches this audit. I wanted you to have the experience of what it's like to come to the page and look at it in the order that the information is being presented in. The question that Jenny asked about is how to integrate an ebook that she's written into the setup of the page, but also from a more marketing strategy point of view, how to make it work for her business. Little Green Space wants to mainly sell one-on-one services at this point. So the question is, what with an 80-page online workbook or PDF workbook, do you want to sell that as a standalone item? Do you want to give it away as a lead magnet? And how does it appear on the website? Why am I bringing this up now? Because the 4 elements in brand identity, earth, air, fire, water, that's a big part of that ebook. The ebook talks a lot about like how to set up your eco business, how to think about the values that you want to stand for, how to incorporate them into your business every day, and then also how to build your branding on that foundation. And it's absolutely fascinating to see how Jenny describes these 4 different types of brands: the earth brands, air brands, fire brands, and water brands. And I think that's a true highlight of that workbook, to help people understand into what group they naturally fall and how that can drive their design in logo design, font choices, web design, all of that. So I would recommend using this bit about the 4 elements in brand identity to create a really fun and engaging quiz where people can answer a few questions. Some of those are probably already in that ebook. Like if we go through the ebook together, we will find those questions and examples that we can use to build a quiz. And then for people to find out, is my brand actually an air brand? And what does that mean for what I can do in terms of having, choosing my color palette, or how to build my Instagram grid? That would be really, really fun to create, but also fun to engage with. And then you could use that as a gateway into the ebook. I would never recommend having an 80-page lead magnet. We've got one from scratch, which is, I think, 24 pages, and I think that's already a little long. But 80 pages, definitely too long. A lot of people download ebooks from various websites and they don't fully engage with them because they were free, and we tend to not fully use free stuff like that, especially if it's not really something I can do in 15 minutes and then I've already got a result. The workbook that Jenny wrote is so in depth that I would recommend setting aside a couple of hours to work through it at the very least, because there's so much value you will get out of it. So I would probably offer that as a paid product for people who love the work you do but can't afford working with a designer just yet, or even for people who want to get to know you better, who might have the budget but really want to know more than they can find out through the website. It's almost like dipping your toe in before you take the leap. So something really affordable, I'm not a fan of $100 type ebooks either. I don't think that's reasonable at all. I would think about, okay, if I were to walk into a bookshop, what would I spend on a book like that, and then set the price accordingly, and use some sort of distribution through WooCommerce or whatever fits your website to make that available, and just sell it online. And you can always use excerpts as lead magnets, like that quiz, for example. You could say, okay, if you want to get tips that fit your fire brand, then sign up here, and I'll occasionally send you an email with little nuggets of inspiration. And that way people get real value for signing up. It's still optional. They don't have to. It takes them on a journey of getting to know you better, and you're not giving away your ebook where it then sits on somebody's hard drive without ever being used. So that's my tip for how to use the ebook. There's more about the ebook here, Your Guide to Ecopreneurship. It's absolutely magnificent. I mean, the illustrations, they're just amazing. The way it's put together, there's so much good advice in there. It's really actionable. The thing is, from this section on, though, the 4 elements in brand identity, we're losing structure a little bit. So this all needs to be tied together a little bit more firmly, so I understand what the 4 elements have to do with the brands that reflect the natural world. I would actually recommend offering a quiz at this point here. So rewriting the section, choosing a different illustration here, and then offering a quiz here saying, find out how your brand can reflect the natural world. And that takes us to a quiz page, which you can also link here in the header menu. And then this bit about the 4 elements in brand identity, that's being shown to people when they come to the quiz page. It's a bit of an introduction. It tells them why they should take the quiz and makes them curious. And then you can spend the rest of the page on, for example, talking about who you are, and maybe teasing to the ebook too. But the ebook should be teased only on the home page, and then you should offer it on a separate page. So you can go into a little bit more depth and talk about what the book covers, what you can do with it, showing the sneak peek, and then offering a way to purchase the book as well. One thing that I just want to quickly say, because at this point we learn that Margot Carpentier is the person behind this illustration, these illustrations here, and also, crucially, this illustration here. So let's make sure that from the get-go, we're really clear on whose illustration this is. When I come to the page and I learn that Little Green Space is run by Jenny DeRay, I immediately have a bit of an expectation that all of the work I will see here is provided by Jenny. However, it's a creative studio. It says we, so it sounds like there's more than one person behind it. I think that needs to be made clearer so that we know exactly who Little Green Space is and what the relationship of various pieces of work that we see here is to Little Green Space. So if Margot is available for commissions through a Little Green Space, then why not add a little note here saying illustration by Margot Carpentier, and then people can say, hey, can we get something like Margot's illustration here? And at least it then doesn't sound like this was made by Jenny, but actually further down on the page, we find out it was actually made by Margot. And we can also make that clearer by adding a bit more text to the about bit here, because this text is really what makes it sound as if Little Green Space were only Jenny. If we add a few more sentences after this one to just say what Little Green Space is and what it encompasses, I think that's going to be really helpful in clarifying who exactly is involved and what sort of team there is. I would also recommend having a picture that looks at people more directly. Maybe just use this one, because when we have a picture where you're looking to the left, our eye wants to follow your gaze. And so we're not really looking at the copy underneath the image, or at least we don't want to. Like there's these click tests and heat maps that we can look at. And usually when there's a picture with somebody looking to the left, then the visitor will also look to the left. So what would be relatively easy, I suppose, is to swap the images that you've got. So here we've got the one where you're looking at me, and here we swap the form with the image. And if you're looking at the form because you're looking towards the left, then people might be more likely to actually go and fill it in. It's just a little bit of a subtle way of getting people to take action. Now, coming to a close, because we're coming up to 30 minutes here, we've got this section called questions. These questions really, they're questions to think about for somebody who comes to the page, or somebody who reads the book, somebody setting up their business. They're really deep reflection questions. And so I think that the headline at the very least would need to make those clear. Because the questions are addressed in the book, or because they're taken from the book, I would really recommend writing a headline that says something like, the book helps you to address questions like these. So it's clear to me what the questions are about, what I should do with them, and so on. And then finally, with the Let's Chat box, this is a really easy way to generate a lot of leads for consultations. You're not asking for a lot of information here, and that's of course helpful in getting more people to fill this out. However, if you're looking to improve the quality of your leads, I would recommend adding more fields. Something like, are you interested in branding, web design, illustrations, all of the above, or things that help you prepare for the consultation, and maybe even offering a scheduling tool of some sort, so you don't have to have the long back and forth between you and your prospect when you're trying to set up the call, just to streamline that a little bit. And again, as I said, not using work with me here, but something like send or request a consultation, or let's find a date, something like that, just to make all that copy a little bit more about what we're really doing here. Because working with you, that's still a question mark at this point, and it's a question mark in the future. Yeah. Another thing that might be good to add is the fact that at this point, all new Little Green Space clients will automatically receive this wonderful ebook free of charge. So I would recommend adding it here or adding it where you're talking about the book, so that people have another reason to think, oh, this is a really nice offer. I would love to have that ebook. Let's get in touch with Jenny to find out if we can work together. Yeah, and just to finish things off, beautiful statement in the footer. Here we've already got the Instagram icon, so maybe we can simply remove it from the main menu. The website's wind powered, absolutely love that. Climate positive workforce, that's something I would recommend checking out. I didn't know about this before meeting Jenny and the Green Space, and I'm really intrigued by that. And one thing that I'm missing in the footer is just some information about data privacy, cookie policy, company registration number, that legal stuff that's required for websites. That quite often happens, so nothing to worry or fret about at this point, but it's easy to add. You know, there are free services helping you to set that up, and then just adding another page to your website and linking it in the footer. Right, that's it. 32 minutes or almost. Very sorry to have taken up so much time, but it's a chunky, meaty website. And so I wanted to do it justice. If you want your own web audit, check out fromscratch.net/freebies. And there you can apply for your own web audit for the rainforest. Otherwise, we've got our big web audit as a paid service that you can book straight through the website too. And yeah, if you've got any feedback or comments or questions, let us know. Bye for now.